Today I die.
Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here. Today I am talking with Kim Chapman Whitfield. She is an icon, an ABC and Fox affiliate anchor. She is co-founder of the Miracle League of Chattanooga. She is a woman of distinction, and most importantly, she is going to share her secrets to success, and she's going to spill the intimate details about her life, loves, and rise to the top. This is the Empowered Career Woman podcast, broadcast from the Whitfield Media Group studios in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Empowered Career Woman proudly is presented by Medicare Misty. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at MedicareMisty.com. I'm your host, Lisa McCluskey, and now let's podcast. Well, as I said, I am here with Kim. Welcome, Kim.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me today. I'm a little nervous because I saw we've been talking ahead of time. It's like, ooh, and an icon, I'm nervous. I don't want to let you down.
Oh, no, I am very nervous. I feel like I'm standing in the presence of a celebrity because so many people have seen you on the air at 6, 10, 11, have watched you share just such powerful stories through Pay It Forward and the many other special features that you do. And you've done such tremendous work through the Miracle League of Chattanooga. So I'm really anxious to get into your career because you've been here since 2001, right?
Yes.
You're about to celebrate your 25-year anniversary.
Yes.
That's exciting.
That flew by.
And that's rare, right, in the news world?
Yes, you usually get to, well, when you start out, you usually are at one station for 2 to 3 years, and you jump, and you get bigger and bigger in the market size of the TV, TV market where you work. So I was here once before, back in the days when Fox 61, First to 10 was on.
Okay.
And then got a job in Jacksonville, Florida, and then came back to Chattanooga, and I've been here ever since. So
that's remarkable, and we're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You were so nice. Thank you.
So let's start. I want to kind of share your meandering career path and how you got to be here, and we're going to talk about some of the times you had to pivot, some times when things got a little challenging and how you managed it. Talk about the workplace and today's woman, how she fits into it and how she can navigate successfully, and just anything else that comes to mind that we think about in your long career.
Right. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, great. So tell me, where did you start? Were you starting in Florida?
No, I actually started at an independent television station in Rome, Georgia.
Okay.
WAWA TV,
Oh, okay.
TV 14. They're no longer in business. And I went from there. I was only there about 6 months, and then went to Anniston, Alabama, Chattanooga, Jacksonville, Florida, and then back.
Okay.
So a couple cities along the way.
So was your degree in journalism? Did you know that you wanted to be a journalist, or how did you get into that career path?
I didn't right away. When I was in high school, I liked to wrote for the newspaper, media, which not quite what it is, today, obviously, but it was a taste of it. And then I thought, wow, it might be, encouraging or uplifting to be a teacher. And then a lot of the requirements in that, I thought, well, maybe not. Maybe let's think about this. And so as college went on, yes, I majored in mass communications and minored in psychology, which probably is a good thing.
Yeah, that's a very good thing, especially today.
Right. And in the news business too. So, and I went to the State University of West Georgia, which is in Carrollton, and it's a part of the University of Georgia system, kind of like UTC.
Sure.
Would be. It's in the system, just a little bit smaller of a school. So.
Okay. All right. So then you went to Florida for a while, right?
Yep.
And what brought you back to Chattanooga? Was it just something that you always loved this area of town, or tell me a little bit about how you got here?
Well, I did love Chattanooga and was here 3 years with Fox 61.
Yeah.
And the news director at News Channel 9 got a job offer in Jacksonville, Florida with the new ABC affiliate there, and he brought me with him.
Okay.
And I was a co-anchor of the morning news there for about 3 years. And then the station sold, I guess it merged with another station in town in Jacksonville. And so they were like, sorry, we're closing. And it was after, I guess, 2 years or so, 2.5 years. And we were all gone. But we were told, oh, the station across the street is hiring and they'll bring you in. And they took one person. So we were all kind of, what do we do now? But we all stayed together as friends. And we'd all have dinner once a week. And okay, there goes another one. There goes another one. So we stayed together and are still close now. And then I got a phone call from Chattanooga, from the news director, and he said, we've heard about this. We have a news opening for 5:30 with Calvin Sneed. And then you'd be filling in with Mary Ellen, and for Mary Ellen, because Mary Ellen was sick at the time. And that's how I got here the second time around.
Oh, and that's Mary Ellen Locher.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And you worked with her for, how long did you work with her?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And had a very close friendship.
Yes. She was an amazing person. She was so vibrant. She walked in the room and the whole place just lit up. And she was a very strong Christian, but she was very funny.
Yeah.
She was very smart. She was so funny at the same time, too. You never knew what she was going to say, but it was always good.
Oh, that sounds like a great way that you got here, because just like many times it's you worked for somebody who made a move and then they asked you to follow them.
Yes.
But then you found yourself suddenly out of a job, and you had, how long of a period of time was it before you found something?
I think it was about 8 months.
8 months.
It wasn't too terrible.
Yeah.
It felt like forever, but it wasn't too bad. And my parents lived in Florida at the time, so it was kind of like, oh, I'm living with my parents again.
Yeah.
But it didn't last that long, and then came back here. So I was blessed. Definitely blessed.
Definitely. And, people today are facing layoffs really across the country. And I've seen in January and February, there are a number of businesses that are laying off. So how did you keep yourself kind of motivated, or keep yourself a little, I don't want to say feeling positive, but what did you do in that period of time to stay up, to stay feeling as though, there was a future, there was a place that you could go?
Well, I think I just try to be positive, like you said, and just think whatever happens, happens. I want to stay in journalism, but if that's not the course that God wants me to take, then something else will be there. Mm-hmm. So I was always concerned about it, but I didn't worry, that nothing would come along. I guess it was just something in my heart that I knew that it would work out. I just didn't know when or how.
Yeah, you had faith.
Yes.
And it sounds like a lot of good contacts as well.
Yes. And at that time, I actually hired an agent, thinking, okay, they'll help. And
really,
I got this job on my own. He sent me, a couple places, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Tampa, Florida, a couple other places that just weren't the right fit.
Yeah.
So,
well, your own heart and the type of culture that you want to be a part of more than an agent would.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And they're expensive.
Makes sense. Yeah,
they're expensive.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, that worked out.
I remember working with recruiters. They would call, and you would think, well, okay, I'll maybe go take a look and practice interviewing, and you would be flying all over the place to, not knowing. And I did go to a place that just wasn't the right culture fit. I knew immediately in the interview that wasn't right.
Right.
So. Yeah.
How long have you been here? How long were you at CHI?
Well, I've been here since 2008.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's been quite a while. I was at CHI for almost 14 years.
Right. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows Lisa and the media.
The media here is really, really good to work with. They truly are. It's not controversial in terms of, a contentious relationship with the media. They really are very easy to work with, and
good.
I thoroughly enjoyed everybody. So
that's good to know, because you never know how people feel about it,
Right, exactly, because it seems nowadays there's conflict with media on a lot of fronts.
Yes.
And I think here in Chattanooga, they really try to put out real information, inform the public, and not try to sway opinions.
Yes,
which
absolutely.
is, I find, very important. They're transparent. They want to educate and inform and not sway.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right. So let's talk about, you ran into some challenges, though, in In your career, you faced a little bit of discrimination, I understand. So let's talk about that.
Okay, happy to, actually.
Yeah.
New in the business. My first job, as we spoke earlier, was at Wawa TV in Rome,
Yes.
Georgia. And this was my first job out of college. And excited, nervous. And at this time, I'm thinking, okay, you need to check with the police and find out what kind of murders are going on and crime and all that. And I was so nervous. And I replaced a reporter, a female reporter, who had moved on to another job. And they hired a man to replace her. So technically, I was only there for 6 months, but I had seniority. And the news director calls the 4 people into the studio to let us know that they're making cutbacks and we are the victims of that axe. And in broadcasting, you have to remember in your mind, in the back of your mind, that the mics are always hot.
Yes.
The microphones are always on. And at that time, the news director didn't think about that. So he says, we're making cuts, and I start to cry because this was, I'm on my way.
Right.
My first job, and then this happens. And I didn't know why, because there was a choice. It was either me or the man, and I won't name him. And so I looked at the news director and I said, why me? And he excused everybody, and it was just the 2 of us. And I said, I don't understand. What have I done wrong?
And you had seniority, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just by a couple months.
Right.
But I was still there first. And he said, Kim, let me tell you. He said, you do this, and he listed, 8, 9, 10 things that he felt that I did better than the other reporter. And I said, then why me? And he said, Kim, quoting here, if you had been a man and the other reporter had been a woman, we would have kept you.
That's a mic drop moment.
Yes, it's still, it gives me chills still
Yes.
to this day. And so the mic was hot, and there were people in place, it's called master control, which is basically the heart of where the newscasts come from. The directors who, cue the anchors and roll the tape and whatnot. I opened the door to the studio, and there were people standing outside, and I've got mascara running down.
Right.
It was a really ugly cry.
The ugly cry.
Really ugly cry.
So were they shocked? Did they all
Yes.
have their mouths dropped open?
Yes. And the one guy who is in Chattanooga now, he's a teacher. He said, you go home right now. And he was very adamant about it. He said, dry your eyes, get that makeup off your face, that mascara off your face. He said, call an attorney. I will testify for you.
Oh, good. Good for him.
And so then other people jumped in. And so I said, and I went to my news director and I said, I need to go home. He said, yeah, go ahead, just come back when you can. And I called my mom and I said, help me find an attorney. And she did. And it was a firm in Atlanta. And the person that she called was my parents had a business at the time. And their attorney is who she called. And he said, okay, let me put you in touch with someone else in our firm. And her name was Lynn Rambo.
Oh,
Which
that's a fitting name, right?
I said, I like you already.
Right.
And so she guided me through it. And there's a lot that you have to do ahead of time, including filing a complaint with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And they ruled against me because there were 4 people that they let go, 2 men, 2 women. So in their eyes, that was
equal.
legitimate. Yeah. And so I was disappointed and a little disheartened. And she said, we can move forward if you want. She said, but keep in mind that if you do pursue this, it could ruin your career. And I said, okay, let's go.
Good for you.
We moved on and we had the attorney and we sat down, and the judge who heard the case was Judge Murphy, who has since passed away in Rome, Georgia, in federal court in Rome, Georgia. And it was trial by judge. And I had to go practice. I had no idea that you do any of this.
Right.
And I had to go with Lynn, and she would ask me questions that the defense would ask, how they would come at me. And so I was prepared. And then she said at the end, I'm going to throw you a softball. lob you a softball and you knock it out of the park. And so I did, and I started to cry and practice. And so we did it, and it lasted a couple of days, and the judge ruled in my favor. And it wasn't any big deal, and multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and it was the principle more than anything.
Right.
It's like, don't do this. Learn from your lesson,
Yes.
please. So, and then moved on. That's when I went to Anniston.
Wow.
So.
And that I think that's so important to talk about, because so often women will just let it go because they're afraid that it will make waves or it will ruin their career. And I can tell you personally, I went through that when I was working with the city, and there was a city councilman that did not like me, and it was because he thought I had too much power. I was a public information officer, and I would address the council and make recommendations, and he just was very traditional. The women should be at home. His wife was subservient and thought I had too much power, and so he started doing things to harm my career and to harm my recommendations. He would even, when I came to present to the council, he would turn his back on me. So he was clearly showing everybody that he wasn't going to listen. So when it looked as though, he was trying to sway the mayor to find a way to eliminate my position, and it was personal, I did go to an attorney. And, we were going to pursue a suit, and I called it off because I feared that it would harm my career, and I had kids. And so I give you a lot of credit for being brave enough to go forward with it. I think there are many, many times when people don't because they fear, as you said,
right,
this can hurt me long term. But
I guess it's just had an attitude.
That's
it's
right.
Like, that's wrong.
Winning,
Don't do that.
You won for a lot of women because that's probably the last time something like that happened.
Yes.
Nothing like the nothing like a jury going in your favor for things like that to happen.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So let's talk about then. You came to Chattanooga, and you started at the news stations, but you also had some volunteer activities happening. You were on the board of the Epilepsy Center, right? And then you were tapped to serve in Washington. Is that
yes? Yes.
So how did that come about?
That was I was recommended by the director of the Epilepsy Foundation of Southeast Tennessee.
Okay.
And they reached out, and my jaw dropped. I was like, "You want me? Why do you want me?" And they thought that it was interesting to have someone on television with epilepsy, because the questions, I had epilepsy, and the question was always, have you ever had a seizure on the air? Well, no, I haven't. I had a seizure during my job interview at News Channel 9 the second go around, which I think was more, of course, it's alarming and startling for them because you don't know what to do. So I think that was part of their interest.
Yeah.
And I would fly to Washington, D.C., we'd stay in Georgetown and sit. And these people were big deals, Here I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you've got all these people from Washington, D.C., and the bills that they write, and, just a lot of advocacy for people with epilepsy. So that was really exciting.
That would be.
Yeah. And I served my term and came back.
Yeah. So
it was exciting.
You got to see from the inside how some new legislation starts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, the chairman of the board at the time was a gentleman by the name of Tony Coelho, and he authored the ADA.
Oh, wow.
And so to be a part of that, and I want to get down and worship him, because he was all over it. He has done a lot for the community with disabilities.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Really did. Yeah.
Wow, what a magical time.
It was. It absolutely was.
Yeah. Okay, so then from there, you also were involved with Miracle League, and you co-founded that organization. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be and what Miracle League is and what it does.
Okay. Well, first, the Miracle League is global. I think at last check, they had 200 leagues. And the leagues are basically, the Miracle League is a special league for children and adults with special abilities. If there's a child, say, in a wheelchair, or an adult in a wheelchair, crutches, things that, where they can't run from base to base, basically. And so the Miracle League field is one piece, and it's a rubberized surface, and they roll it out, and they, nail it to the ground or whatever you want to call it. And the lines are, all the bases and lines are already like printed on it. And so athletes or the players can go to bat and hit, and then, run, or in their wheelchairs or on their crutches, go from base to base. Everybody wins. All the home runs count, and we don't keep score.
Oh, how fun.
And it's a big part of my soul.
Yeah.
It really is. And it started in Whitfield County when they had their first one. Oh my gosh, I think they've been playing for 12 years now, I think. It could be wrong. But I'd met a young man by the name of Patrick Sherrock, and he had brittle bone disease and had 70 surgeries at, such a young age, because he could just tap his wrist and it would break.
I remember, wasn't his family featured in one of the home shows where
Yes.
they built a house for him?
Yes, Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
That's right. Yes. Okay.
And actually I had met them through other organizations and just fell in love with Patrick. I mean, and there was actually an event, and I was emceeing it and talking about him. It was with the Shriners, and he was sitting there, and he got a hold of my mic. And that's another rule. Your mic is always hot, and don't let anybody else take it, because you'll never get it back. Well, he started to tell jokes, and his mother came running to the front. Not that he was going to say anything bad, just give her the mic back. And so that's how I got to meet Patrick and his family.
Yeah.
And they asked me to be his buddy for opening day. And each player has a buddy, which is someone who's with them for the entire game. Each game is 2 innings, and you just go with them from base to base to make sure they're not hurt. And I was out in the outfield with him, and I was a nervous wreck because I didn't want him to get hurt, and I was almost, hovering
Right.
over him. And I remember standing out in the field, and I was taking pictures, and I said, Chattanooga needs one of these. And I had posted pictures on Facebook, and a friend of mine from high school saw it, and his son has special abilities, and he said, this will change your life.
Oh.
And it did. So I came back here to some friends, and I said, I have no idea about fundraising. I'm not comfortable asking people for money, let alone large amounts of money.
Right.
And so, of course, other people got involved. And, we struggled. We struggled because it's a $1.2 million facility right now. And it's just every time I go, and just in my own little world, just watching the players, it's really neat. Really
That's
neat.
incredible. And what a great story that it's a Facebook post somebody from high school looked
Right.
at and thought they could make a difference.
Yeah, the high school
Yeah.
quarterback.
Wow.
And here we are, right? And so it's come a long way.
Yeah.
It took us a while to get there, but we have a lot of support, and people still don't know about it. And I think we've been 7-8 years now, but slowly but surely the word gets out, and these people become your family. And then for the parents of children with special abilities, it's a community for them and for the players, where they're in the same situation, and quote unquote other people like them, where they can't play baseball.
Right. They can go and have the experience and have
Exactly.
fun and just forget about everything but having fun for one day.
Yes.
That's
And,
wonderful.
yeah. And they all look forward to it too. I know that they keep calendars. I could talk about the Miracle League all day long.
Right. That's good.
I apologize.
No, I wanted to make sure we talked about it because I think it's something everybody in the community needs to know about.
Yes.
And is there a website for it? Where could people go to?
Yes. We have all kinds of social media.
Okay.
Website is miracleleaguechat.com.
Okay.
And then just, put it in Instagram and it'll come up.
I'll put those things in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
I would love to talk about that.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
great.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about your women, and especially in today's world, and where there are a lot of opinions right now, mainly political. Being in your position as an anchor, how do you work across the divide of opinions?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard, especially at work. And we're pretty even at work. I mean, we're balanced, and we discuss things among ourselves in the newsroom. And I feel that once we're on the air, we're very balanced. A lot of the national stuff, the network stuff, maybe not so much, but that's out of our hands. But as far as politically speaking and women, News-wise, especially nationally, it's good to see, in my opinion, women who are spokespeople, whether for, a product or politicians.
Right.
Even the current president, they, and previous ones, and I really admire them, because I wouldn't want that job.
It's a tough
I
job.
wouldn't want that job. But for the most part, I think it's just we are balanced enough and adult enough to be able to have our discussions and have our opinions and still be friends at the end of the day.
It's really respecting other people's opinions that may differ from yours. And with social media and even, the business social media, which is LinkedIn, it's very easy to get on there and start, being the keyboard warrior, but you have to be careful with that.
Yes. I don't ever discuss anything on social media about my personal feelings about politics, or really a lot of things, but specifically there, I just don't say a word. I listen, let people talk or rant or vent or whatever their opinions, and just, I don't even like it or anything. I just let them talk and leave it at that.
That's a good recommendation, especially, our audience. I hope there are a lot of young women who are aspiring to careers like you've had, and giving them some advice on how can you navigate that in the workplace when you might have leaders getting into those hot debates. But I think your advice is spot on. Listen.
Thank you. Right. And it's also our responsibility locally as journalists is to hold people accountable, whether it be your government, education, people who are in positions who can influence other people. And that's one of our goals. That's something that we value, especially when it comes to the taxpayer, because often the taxpayer, more often than not, don't have a voice.
Right.
And so that's what we do and of course we research and, we talk to the people and we learn. Sometimes people will give us anonymous tips that we follow up on, but then, I feel in a way that we're the voice for the voiceless, as we should be for everybody, really.
Yeah, I think local media probably has a better pulse on the opinions of the average citizen, because you're out in the marketplace every day.
Right.
You're going grocery shopping and eating out at restaurants and going to events where people are sharing their thoughts with you. Where at the national news level, it's not necessarily that scenario. You're more in touch with the local person.
Right.
Yeah.
Spot on with that. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And you have to be neutral, because, you can polarize a lot of people if you're not.
Right.
So, and that goes for the workplace too. Let's talk about, if when you're coming into many different, for example, board meetings or whatever, you're seen as somebody who wields a lot of power. How do you manage that so people don't look to you for every answer? They see you as a powerful person coming into the room, and they may be looking at you as you have all the answers, but yet you're there. You want to kind of get consensus. So how do you manage that going into the different boardrooms and organizations that you work with?
Honestly, I don't see it that way.
You don't?
I don't see myself as someone who wields power. In fact, I feel the opposite, where I don't. And I don't see that. I never think about it. And I don't know, that may be weird to you or to your listeners, but I just don't look at it that way. I don't think I'm important. I have a voice, I have a heart, and I'm here because I want to help. And people treat me just like that. Maybe they think differently, but I don't see it, and I don't look for it. And so I guess in a way that protects me somehow, I guess.
That's probably why you're so successful.
No, I don't know.
Because, you don't act as though, you're a powerful person coming into the room. You're an everyday woman.
Yes.
And I think that might be really good advice for people as they're going up the ladder, is go into a room and be prepared to just be that everyday person, to listen to what other people have to say, and not have strong opinions, but
But ask questions.
But ask questions.
Yeah.
Be curious.
Yes.
Be curious.
Curious, but not offensive.
Right.
Just be smart about it. I try to anyway. Ask the right questions. Ask what people might want to know. And again, say like for the Miracle League, the voice for the voiceless. But we're all in it together. But as far as going into boardrooms and perception, just be smart about it. Be strong about it. But be smart.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Just going in and admitting, I don't know anything about fundraising, but I'm here to help.
Exactly.
And then people want to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. We were lucky.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning stressing about a plan. Don't know which one to pick, I might need a hand.
Hi, they call me Medicare Misty.
She'll help to make the process smooth as whiskey, don't worry.
We work with several different carriers to make sure your coverage is not limited by a single company. Visit MedicareMisty.com and book your appointment today.
Don't worry, guarantee you'll be happy.
Do you find for the news industry, it seems to be a very competitive environment? Do you find there's a lot of competition between women in the industry?
I think, and that's a good question. Here locally, I don't.
Yeah.
Especially here lately. I mean, we've had several teams come in, different reporters. And like we were saying earlier, you work a couple of years, you move on, you move up, what have you. But I've noticed that a lot of our teams, our news teams, our reporters, a lot of them are women. And instead of being, against each other, competitive, mean, catty, whatever, they are actually friends. And they socialize after work. You can go on Facebook or go on Instagram or whatever social media platform, and they're all taking pictures. They talk to each other. They cry to each other or with each other. And that's so refreshing to see, because back in the days of, say, like Anchorman.
Right. Yes.
Back in the 80s where it was all the men and, the women were blonde and dumb. You're blonde hair and you don't know what you're doing. And that certainly has changed. And that's so good to see, because in the movie...
Right.
I hated it, but it was true. So then when you see, back then, the female anchors coming on who were good, who were positive, who were smart, that kind of set it out for the rest of us. Like, you can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that there's the competition here. Maybe among other stations there is. But as a team, there's that competition. Because you always want to have the story first. Break the news, especially if it's something ongoing, to get it right then, right there. But I think at times, too, it's more about getting the word out to the people than it is competing with someone else to see if they've gotten it too. I mean, we monitor that, but it's our goal. We had a situation last night. We had a man who had himself holed up in a house in Ottawa, and they ended up having to kill him. And we were live with it, and none of us thought, oh my gosh, did anybody else have that? It was like, we have it. This is the information we have so far, and this is what we can share. Mm-hmm. So I think it's changed considerably, and for the good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this generation, is you see them working more collaboratively and even being more gentle, if you will. Their attitudes towards each other.
Yes.
It's not, if I'm going to knock you over the head so I can win, but it's more of a, if you win, we all win attitude.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I would think it is hard today with social media that, you have the amateur people out there taking photographs and posting online before the accurate story can be shared.
Yeah. And we're required to partake or participate or post on social media news stories.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where news is going, where the line television or, 6, 10, and 11 is, we still do well, but it's not what it used to be in the days of Anchorman.
Right.
If you will.
Yes.
Because back then, there were fewer choices. So now you have the reporters who have to get out, get the story, make sure that it's on. So in addition to putting it on the air, you have to have it on the website. You have to have it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. And it's overwhelming sometimes. and I call them kids, what these kids have to do,
Right.
but that's where we are now.
Yeah, it's a constant news cycle. I used to say it was a constant news cycle, and now it seems like it's a nano news cycle. You have split seconds before
Yes.
somebody else, an amateur person, is posting something online.
Right.
But I always look to, News Channel 9 to provide the accurate information.
Oh, thank you.
If you want the real story that is going to be the truth, wait for your national and your local ABC affiliate to tell that.
Right.
So, yeah. It's changed so much. I can't imagine how you keep up with all of it.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but you learn and you do what you can do. And I'm able to do that with Pay It Forward, where that's my baby. That's where I put stuff on social media. That's what I get to do. So I'm lucky, I guess, in a way, because I don't get in. TikTok, I'm just going to stay away because of all the things that, we're hearing about it now.
Right.
I feel like it's just safer to be cautious.
I would agree with you on that one, on
Thanks.
TikTok.
Yeah.
So did you have mentors as you went through your career? Were there particular people who helped you?
There were, when I came to Chattanooga the first time, and probably the second time, it was Mary Ellen. Mm-hmm. She was definitely a mentor, just watching her, and she was very poised too. She was very smart, and just watching her just be her. She was just Mel, Mary Ellen. We called her Mel.
Yeah.
And she was a beautiful person. Beautiful. And there was an anchor in Jacksonville who had done some network work, and he was also my co-anchor. So talking to him, and he's been in the big leagues, if you will. And so he helped, with reporting skills and ideas and how to write. And he was very good. He was very good. So he was one of them, I would say, the two of them. And then my dad, personally, I would say, was a mentor. He used to always I remember the night that he told me, we're sitting at the kitchen table, and I don't even know what started the conversation. It was when I was younger. And he said, Kim, always remember that your life is God's gift to you, and what you do with your life is your gift to God.
Wow. That's powerful. Every decision you make, judging against that barometer.
Yes. I hear my dad.
Yeah. Am I fulfilling being God's gift to life?
Yes.
Wow.
It's hard to
That kind of gives me chills to think about, really. Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well,
He's a good one.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I always think mentors are so important, and a lot of times they're accidental mentors.
Yes.
You don't realize it, that they're trying to mentor you until you step back and you go on. So they're very important to people coming in. Always look for who is doing it well. Who do you respect? Who is respected in in your field?
Right.
That you can talk to, because most people who've been in business a long time, they're ready to mentor. They're ready to give away their information and help somebody coming up.
Yep. I try to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, do you see opportunities, with, as you mentioned, the electronic landscape and social media, people coming up in journalism? Do you still see a lot of opportunity for women in journalism?
I do. However, the way television stations and the media, how they all are right now, there are so many cutbacks. There's so many layoffs. Recently, the situation with the Weather Channel, where they were getting rid of all their local affiliates, and they were just going to be the hub, and the Weather Channel in Atlanta was going to be the source for national and local weather. Now, they've changed their mind since then, but I think women still absolutely will move forward in the media, but there are a lot of cutbacks, and it's not quite, I won't say as stable as it used to be, but I don't think it is. But I think still women who, are involved on the air and in social media, as well as, as men as well. But I think, just looking at it, there's no question. And I kind of feel proud the young women that I see at News Channel 9 and how they go on and do well. It's good to see.
Yeah. So would you recommend still a background in journalism, or do you think that they should expand beyond that? Like you had that psychology minor. If someone was asking you, I want to go on your career path, what would you recommend that they do?
Wow. That's a tough one because there are a lot of things. I think I go back to be yourself, be firm, ask the right questions. And it's really tough. There's one reporter in particular who actually has a degree in journalism, but she also did theater. And that's something else
that would be good.
Yeah.
On camera.
Yeah. We have a couple. We have 3 people, 2 women and 1 man who were, 4 that were in theater.
Yeah.
And then there's another member of the media at another television station who was the drum major at the University of Tennessee. So there are a lot of life experiences, I think. But as far as if you want to pursue a career in journalism, there are you need to know how to tell a story. And that's hard.
Storytelling is very hard.
Yes, because you don't want to get caught up in what the news release says. And people will say, well, how do you do this? How do you write that? And I said, do that story like you were telling me the story. Don't use the, fire destroyed this, or talk about it. Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. I want to know the story. And so I think there's a little bit of both between learning about journalism in a college and the who, what, where, when, why. That's still a thing from then until now. But I think every good journalist will have all that and be able to tell it in a way that people get it. Not that they understand because, that they're not intelligent, but it's just kind of like, oh, you got the information that I didn't know. And so I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm just kind of walking that line and thinking about it.
No, I never thought of it that way, but you see that a lot on social media, people who are trying to be creators.
Yes.
The advice is be a really good storyteller. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing when you're trying to collapse a story into just a few seconds on air. Right. Or even a minute. You have to be a good storyteller to capture people's attention.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a great combination.
Yeah.
That's good advice. I like that. Be a good storyteller.
Yes.
Get the journalism background for the official part of it.
Yes.
And then be a good storyteller.
And then blossom.
Yeah. Blossom. Stay strong.
Yes. Yes. And learn. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. What books are on your bedside table?
Well, I was talking to my husband about this, and, literally on my bedside table, there are Valentine's Day flowers that are starting to wilt and pictures and frames. And I'm sitting here and I'm on the spot, and I've been reading Zenith Man by Ken Poston in North Georgia. And I have it, I've had it, and I'm just getting started with it. And some friends of mine have read it, and they really enjoyed it, and they learned a lot because I think it was cathartic for Ken. I don't know if you know Ken Poston. He was an attorney and still is an attorney in North Georgia. He was involved in politics for a while. And I enjoy that. He's local. I've read Tanya Craft's books. I don't know if people are familiar with that story. But then I can't think of the guy's name. He's an author, obviously, and I'm sitting here and I can see the book and I can't think of his name, but he's been an author for quite some time. And there was a football game, an Eagles football game, and one of the receivers, A.J. Brown, was reading this author's book on the sidelines, and the cameras caught him. It was like, oh my gosh, what's that book? And so this author has on the New York Times bestseller list now.
Right.
Because of that moment. So I thought, okay, I want to read it too. So that's on the way.
Yeah.
That one's on the way.
I will put the name of that in the show notes too, because I looked it up as well. I thought I'm going to get that book. Everybody did. That book had been languishing, way down because it's been out for a while. Yes. And then all of a sudden, after everyone saw him reading it, it shot up.
Yes.
So it's good to have a variety of topics that you read.
Yes.
And, a lot of times people think, I have to read, a book a week, but
Right.
even if you just read a sampling of different books, it's good. And I have to tell you, I was encouraged. I was listening to Simon Sinek, and he said, everybody thinks I'm a voracious reader. He said, I've only completed probably one book, but I have completed a quarter or a half or 3/4 of a lot of books.
That's true. That's
So,
true. Yeah.
Don't feel
That's true.
bad. I said I feel vindicated. Don't feel
Yes.
bad if you have a lot of different books and you only make your part way through.
Right, right.
It's just important to get a wide viewpoint.
Yes.
Right.
And I do enjoy Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, yes.
He's a favorite. He's a favorite. And I read a lot of stuff online too. I'm kind of embarrassed to say because I sit down and read it, but I guess that's faster and more convenient to
Yes.
get,
Yeah.
the synopsis quickly.
Yeah.
So-
There's some books I think I wish I had the Cliff Notes version.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to think of.
I just want the Cliff Notes.
Right. Just give me the details. Just give me the highlights.
That's right. Yeah. So let's get into the deeper topic of what impact do you want to leave on the world, even though you have already left a major impact.
We had talked about that. My husband and I had talked about that. And I thought, and I've been thinking about that for a while. And my first thought was, the world's a big place. I can't leave an impact. But I would certainly hope that people would know to be kind. People have feelings. Everybody has a story. If you get mad, remember they have a story. Be a good human and do what you can for the people who can't on their own. That was always my thing. And I always feel like I need to do more. What else can I do to help? And so I guess at the end of the day, that's what I would hope that people would take away from it and think, she was nice. She was just a nice person. So I don't know. I've never really thought about it that way,
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that just be a good human and be kind to others. There's just not enough kindness happening right now.
Yeah.
So, and you have to think about what that person's going through because you don't know.
Exactly.
You don't know if they just lost their job or they lost a parent or they're a caregiver and they're stressed out or, there's,
Right.
just stop and be kind.
Yeah. I mean, there's a person that I work with who struggles sometimes, and I didn't know it, and he's fairly new, and I passed him in the hallway, and I was like, because he kind of had his head down, you read the body language, and I
Yeah.
thought, he's not happy. And so I went over and I said, are you okay? And he said, I'm just not having a good day today. And there's some underlying issues. And I said, do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Because hugs are, hugs are good medicine.
Healing.
Yeah. And so I just gave him a big hug, and it may not have solved the day, but maybe it made a difference that things were a little bit better than they were before.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes it is just asking that question, are you okay?
right.
That's it.
Yeah. And then people know you care.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's important.
We need more of that in the world.
We try.
Yep. Love it. So who's inspiring you today?
In my life today?
Yes.
Is that where I'm supposed to say my husband?
No. He's inspiring everybody.
He does.
He does. He's
He
such a
does.
genuine person, genuine nice person.
He is. I don't think he realizes sometimes how nice he is,
No, I know he doesn't.
And so I look at that and I thought, boy, I'm awful compared to him.
Oh, I doubt that.
But he's always like, if I'm down, he's like, it'll be okay. It's not
Yeah.
so bad. And, some things we can't control. We step outside of the house. So just beware and be positive. And he always says, if you're going forward and you look back, and we all do that. You think, what if I'd changed this, if I'd said this, what if that happened? He said, that's why the rear view mirror is so small
That's right.
and the windshield is so big, because you move forward, there's more to see. And so I try to keep that with me,
Yeah.
when I'm struggling, or thinking about stuff. But I would say Sean's a big one.
He's
I would.
pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
I'll say the other thing about him is I tell him he's a maven. And I don't know if you remember that book, but
Yes.
a maven is somebody who has to be connecting. He's a connector, likes
Yes.
to connect people.
Yes.
And he has connected me to so many people just through this
good.
podcasting journey. But
Right.
he really enjoys doing that. And he's helped just countless numbers of people simply by making connections.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes.
people owe a lot to him.
Yeah.
And he's so humble, he would never say.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
that. He is so humble.
Yeah.
And I know at some point he'll hear this, and I don't know that he'd be embarrassed, but he'll say, you didn't have to say that.
Oh.
I know, but that's just how he is.
It is how
Yeah.
he is. You got a good one there.
Yeah. And he came along at a really difficult time. And I shouldn't say came along, but the way we connected, was at a really difficult time in my life. I lost my husband in 2016. We're actually coming up on 9 years.
Oh.
That he's been gone. And Sean just opened all kinds of doors and was there at the right time.
Yeah.
Meaning that it was okay for me, to have a relationship and not feel guilty about it. That it's like, okay, it's time. And, God said,
God
okay.
put him in your path when
Yes.
it was ready.
Yes.
And he helped you with Miracle League. Isn't that how you somewhat reconnected?
Well, that's how the first time
Yeah.
we were at Pink. And my husband at the time, and I don't know what I'm supposed to refer to him as, Bob was his name. And he wasn't at Pink that year, so Calvin Sneed was my date. Sean was at the same table. He sat next to me. I had no idea who he was. He was a very nice guy, and Calvin said, you need to talk to Sean about the Miracle League. And I was like, okay, sure. Whoever wants to listen, I'll talk. And poor Sean, I talked his ears off. And his date was probably rolling her eyes, like, shut her up. But that's how it first started.
Okay.
And then we reconnected. He helped me with Miracle League and getting the word out through his media here. And then we reconnected at Pink in 2020. And it's kind of a funny story. And he'll get mad that I told it, but I
That's
love
okay.
it. You know how you're in a hurry and you meet someone for whatever reason and like put the number in your phone.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, I'll put the name in later. I don't have time. Well, I did that with Sean. So after Pink 2020, when I ran into him and I thought he won't remember me, but go over and say hello because he was so helpful back in the day. And he said it was so dark. He said, I couldn't see you, but I recognized your voice. I'm calling, okay. And so he texted me the next day. And it was, very complimentary. And I had to say,
Who is this?
yes, it was awful. And he said, well, I guess I made a great impression. It was just like, I'm so sorry. I felt so stupid. But it's a good, to look back on.
I love
I'm
that.
so
Who is
sorry.
this? Well, you don't want him to have a big head or anything
Right.
to think that you were thinking about him all that time.
Exactly. So it's still a good story to share. It's
Yeah,
still a good
that's a
story to
very
share.
good story to
Yeah.
share. And you've been married how long?
We're coming up on 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
3 years in August.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've been together 5 because after we saw each other at Pink, then he said, do you want to go have dinner among friends? I was like, sure. And I had a seizure, so I couldn't drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came to the station to pick me up and we went and had dinner and been together ever since.
Wow,
So-
that's a great story.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you joining me today. This has really been a great conversation.
I appreciate you having me.
Oh.
I so do. It's so enjoyable. And I just think the world of you.
Oh, thank you.
And all that you've
That's so
done and all.
sweet.
It really is. I really appreciate the opportunity
No,
to sit and chat with you on your podcast.
It was nice, yeah, and I really hope a lot of young women are listening and are inspired because you're definitely an inspiring person.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank
I
you.
certainly appreciate that.
Well, okay, for our listeners, please join me on the next episode of The Empowered Career Woman. I also ask that you help us grow by leaving a rating or a review and follow this podcast. The Empowered Career Woman is proudly presented by Medicare Misty. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at MedicareMisty.com. The rise to the top is not always a straight line. Sometimes the bend in the road is the most challenging, yet it leads us to where we are meant to be. If you are an aspiring business leader or entrepreneur, join us next time as we share stories of women who made it to the top. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you next time.